There are multiple ways to install Docker on your local machine. If you are using Windows, MacBook, or even Linux desktop version, I would suggest you to install Docker Desktop directly. We just need to search download Docker Desktop in Google, and we will find the URL for the download page. You can see it is pretty easy to download Docker Desktop based on your operating system. For me, I'm using MacBook with Apple chip, so I just clicked here, then the download will start automatically, and then you can just follow the standard installation method to install it. I'm not going to download for now as I already have it on my local machine, so I just cancel it here. Once you install the Docker Desktop, it just looks like this. If you click the Home tab, you can see the list of images, and you can simply click the Run button. Also, you can view containers. Once you have container, you can check the status and view the logs of the containers. You can also view images and volumes as well. I'll show you how Docker Desktop helps us to improve the work efficiency in the following courses. If you want to install Docker on your server without user interface such as Linux, you need to use command line to install Docker. Let's just Google install Docker. Then we go to the page for the Docker engine installation. From the list on the left, we can see Docker support almost all the popular operating systems. And in our session, I will show you how to install Docker on Ubuntu 22. Now we need to have a clean server with Ubuntu 22. So we go to our AWS console to create a brand new virtual machine. Just click EC2 instances, launch instance, then we give it a name Ubuntu server with Docker, then we select Ubuntu, and you can see the AMI is based on Ubuntu server version 22. Then we scroll down, we're using T2 Micro. In order to access the server, we need to create a key pair for SSH. We can name it like start quick tag Ubuntu Sydney key. And scroll down, we need to have a security group for the EC2. In order to make it secure, I can only allow SSH via my local IP. Then there should be nothing else. And then I just click launch instance button. We need to wait a couple of minutes until the server is up and running for use to access. In order for you to view clearly, I just put the terminal at the side of the browser. Yeah, it looks better now. Now we have the key in the download folder. Let me just move it to the key folder that I always use, and then go to that folder. We need to change the key permission to 400, which is only readable to the owner of the file. Now we can see the server is up and running, and let's just click the connect. And you can see we have done these already, and we just follow the command line and paste it into the terminal and enter. Okay, now we have logged into the server. Let's just go back to the installation page. Oh, I forgot to do this. Let's just quickly check if Docker has been installed on the server. We can just run docker ps, and you can see the error, which is Docker not found, which means we don't have Docker installed on the server. And we are just following the method that the official Docker website suggested. From the website, we can see we can install Docker Desktop for Linux directly, but the server we have is not a desktop version, so we cannot use this method. We can also install Docker Engine from apt repository. This is what I'm going to do. Other than these, you can also do manual installation or use a convenient script. If you're interested in these two methods, feel free to just have a try. So we scroll down. The first step is to set up the repository. We can just copy the commands. It takes a while to run. Once it is done, we need to add Docker's official GPG key. You don't have to worry about anything. You can just copy, paste, and run the commands. The next step is to set up the repository, and we can still use the command line. Once the repository was set, we can install the Docker engine. Let's do an apt get update for updating the apt package index. Then we run apt get install to install the required packages. We're going to use the latest version, but you can use a specific version as well. Let's just copy the command. If you look at the command, you can see we're not only installing Docker CE and Docker CE CLI, we also install Docker Compose plugin. Docker Compose is a tool for defining and running multiple container Docker applications. We will learn how to use it in the later course. Then I press enter and it will also run for a little while. Now it should be installed. Let's test it. When I run docker ps, the output shows permission denied. But when I run sudo docker ps, we can see Docker works. Then I run docker version, we can see the client Docker version is 23, but I cannot retrieve the server version. But if I run sudo docker version, it just shows up. I will explain it soon. Then let's start our first container. Let's just run sudo docker run hello world. You can see we don't have hello world Docker image locally, so Docker will pull the image from Docker Hub. We can see hello from Docker, which is the output of the container run. I'm not going to explain it here. Once you finish the tutorial, you will understand how it works. So don't worry now, let's keep going. You should just notice, as a non-root user, we don't have permissions to run Docker commands, such as Docker PS or Docker images. So how we solve that? Let's just go back to the web page and scroll to the very bottom. We can see a link which is called Post-Installation Steps for Linux. Let's go have a look. Here it shows Manage Docker as a non-root user, which is the problem now we are facing, right? We do need this, as most of the time we need to use non-root user to manage Docker. Let's just scroll down. The first step is to create a Docker group. Let's just run this. Sudo group add Docker. Here you can see the group already existed. It was actually created during the Docker installation we just did. The next step is to add your user to the group. So $user is actually the username for who runs the command. Here you can see our username is Ubuntu, so we just copy this command to add the user to the group. Now we run docker ps. Still does not work, as we need a real login action to make it work. Okay, let's just exit the server and reconnect. Now let's run docker ps again. Yes, it works. We can also check Docker version, which is used to be permission denied, right? If you don't want to relog in, you can just simply run this command. Let's just keep scrolling down to see what else does it have. Here you can see for Docker running on the server, we want Docker service starts on boot. So we just need to run these two commands to enable Docker service using system control. So next time when your server restarts, the Docker service will still be running. Okay, this is how we install Docker on the Linux server. And for the rest of the course, I will use Docker on my local machine, which is an earlier version comparing with the latest. But the commands are exactly the same. So don't worry about it, and we will move on to the next session to learn how to build our first image.